Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much for being here today, and thank you for holding this very important hearing. I join my colleagues in expressing my deepest condolences to the families and the friends who are here with us today and those who can't be here with us. And of course, they are in our minds, and as are the victims. And I think that that really needs to remain our focus as we're here today. We convene this hearing to get the facts and to understand better what we can do as members of Congress to prevent a tragedy like this from ever happening again. And we understand that these are real people whose lives have been affected, lives have been lost, and lives have been forever changed. And so I remain aware of that, and we want to do what we can. And so one of the things that has been an issue that we've touched on a little bit earlier today, but I want to follow up on, is this delegation of certification authority. I think this is a critical place where Congress really needs to reassess whether this is a program that should continue. And I understand, and there have been questions about this earlier, that Boeing was really able to avoid installing some of the latest safety features by using this amended certification. And I think both Boeing and the FAA failed to evaluate the impacts of the MCAS on the whole aircraft system because of this. So, Mr. Muhlenberg, my question is for you first. The JATR recommends that the FAA needs to ensure that engineers have open lines of communication to the FAA certification engineers without fear of punitive action or process violations. Do you agree with that recommendation?
Congresswoman, we agree with having those open communications.
And what changes, if any, has Boeing made to improve the relationship and ensure that Boeing employees have the access they need to make safety determinations?
Congresswoman, one of the big changes we announced roughly 2 weeks ago now was stand-up of a new safety organization. It's centralized within Boeing, direct reporting line to our chief engineer, who reports to me. That will include our ODA representatives, the delegated authority representatives. I think that will enhance transparency, directness of communication lines with the FAA, and also increase independence from our airplane programs to create that functional strength. So those are changes we've announced and are now implementing.
And are other changes under consideration, or is that the extent of your recommendation at this time?
We have multiple recommendations or actions that are underway. That includes the stand-up of a new aerospace safety committee for our board that's headed up by Admiral Giambastiani. It includes a restructuring of all of our safety review boards across the company, so they now are integrated company-wide. We're standing up a new design requirements organization that, as technology continues to evolve, we can do a better job of sharing those technologies and requirements across the company. And we've realigned our engineering organization structure so all roughly 50,000 Boeing engineers now report directly to our chief engineer. There are additional actions underway and investments for the future. So that list I just gave you is consider that a set of initial actions with more to follow.
Thank you. I want to move on to a couple more things before my time expires. Were any Boeing employees subject to punitive action during the development of the 737 MAX for reporting issues to FAA staff?
Congresswoman, I'm not aware of any such cases. If there were cases like that, we don't accept retaliation. There is no tolerance for retaliation. So I can't personally say I'm aware of any, but let me check the records to see if there are any there.
Thank you. I'd appreciate that.
But I can tell you from a policy standpoint, we do not tolerate retaliation.
I would appreciate if you could get back to the committee on whether any employees were subjected to punitive action. I understand that you don't know that sitting here today for a fact. Another recommendation is that the JATR recommends increased FAA involvement in safety critical areas that are currently delegated to Boeing. I understand Boeing has implemented these changes to internal processes. Have you identified any changes to the delegation process that Congress can help with as we evaluate these issues?
Congresswoman, we're starting to evaluate those opportunities. So discussions are ongoing with the FAA and others. We think the area of human-machine interface and how we set those industry standards and the requirements for how pilots operate in a high workload environment, that's a place where we can work together on new standards. There are also some older regulations that are currently on the books that could be updated to take advantage of new technologies, and we're identifying a specific list in that area. So those are two examples, and I would anticipate there will be more.
Thank you. I see I've exceeded my time, but if you could send those recommendations to this committee, that would be much appreciated. Thank you. And I yield back.